One other thing I want to talk about today too is just the evolving landscape of SEO, and especially if you're doing agency work. It's really, really important that you. I would not recommend just being a pure SEO agency really anymore. I think I just think it's risky in a lot of ways. And the thing is, like, I'll tell you, I don't really regret many things in my business journey so far. Like, I think it's all been necessary for me to learn. But there's one thing that if I could change it, I probably would. And it would be instead of picking like a skill or a channel like SEO or YouTube or social media marketing or Google Ads, like those are just really tactics. And so when you build your agency basically around a tactic or a channel, that's really, really dangerous because you're always susceptible to disruption, right? So like, let's say you became a Facebook, organic Facebook agency, right? So you'd basically run Facebook campaigns for organic marketing on Facebook. But then Facebook changes its algorithms and now your reach is, just obliterated. Let's say you specialize, I'm the Facebook community builder. Well, once again, that might have been really good at one point, but now Facebook communities are just, no one uses them as far as I know. And they get horrible reach, right? Like you could have a community of many thousands of people and get like 0.01% reach to get to those people. So once again, easily disruptible when your agency is channel focused or tactic focused like that. Really, really dangerous. The good news is that the alternative is much less dangerous. And the alternative is to pick a specific vertical that you go after, a specific niche, a specific industry that you want to go after. And just to add some clarifications on this, I've seen some people that when they think about niching down, like they may be like, okay, well, I'm going to be the SEO guy in St. Louis, or I'm going to specialize in WordPress, or I'm going to specialize in Shopify. Once again, those are not niches, those are platforms. So even if you say like, I'm going to specialize in SaaS companies, well, that's not really like SaaS is not, it's just a type of business model. It's not really like a real like industry that you can go in per se, right? Even saying like, I'm going to specialize just in e-commerce. That's a very broad category, right? That's not really like you need to specialize much more than that. So when I talk about specialization, like picking something, like you're picking a specific industry that has infrastructure. Okay. So for example, like in the fire protection industry, fire protection and suppression, you go into that industry and you dig into there and you start to realize like there's a whole like industry built around these services, right? And you can go and see there's associations that you can be a part of. There's certain memberships, certain credentials. Like there's a lot of infrastructure in that industry. That's a real niche. Like that's a legitimate thing where you can go in there and you can become the go-to digital marketing agency for that specific industry. Same thing with plumbers and HVAC. Like you go through these different industries, there's so much infrastructure. This is why people, love going with lawyers. There's a lot of infrastructure there. Dentists, plastic surgeons, like you go down the list, like it's way, way better because instead of just being, I'm the SEO guy, the number one SEO guy in St. Louis. Okay, that's great. But, when people are starting to look down like their line items of like, what are things we should cancel at the end of the year? Oh, what's this SEO stuff? Yeah, let's get rid of the SEO guy. Right? Like that's a pretty easy thing to get rid of. The SEO. Oh, what's SEO? I don't know what that is. Get rid of it. Like we don't want to be disposable. Like we need to build something that's very difficult to get rid of. And the only way to do that is you have to have a kind of multifaceted offer. That's not just, we just do local SEO. If you just do local SEO, you should expect a high cancellation rate because the demonstrating value will be very challenging. And in fact, when you're that isolated, your margin for error is razor thin. Like if you don't perform exceptional and get results in that one little tactic or that one little channel, it's over for you. Now, the good news is if you offer complementary services, it actually gives you a little bit more of a buffer. And that's kind of the cool part. So like, for example, if let's say you stacked on Google ads or something, or you stacked on local service ads, and I'm talking Google search ads specifically, you stack those on, that gives you just like a little bit of breathing room, right? And you can start to drive some leads, start to drive some awareness for this brand. And as the SEO builds and all the stuff that takes a really long time, it doesn't become like the focus. It becomes like, okay, we're looking at this at a broader level. We're looking at this more as like, okay, we're trying to do digital marketing here. We're trying to drive leads and clients via digital marketing, not just like 100% SEO. Like SEO should be a part of the pie, of the overall pie. And I think that's just a much safer approach as well. And another thing too is, and this is something I've been doing with our campaigns, is if you take this approach, it's much easier to kind of like, you need to silo out your efforts. And what I mean by that is like, for example, I've talked about this fire protection company we have, but like this is a company I've been working with, and we've tried different approaches, and we're finally on an approach that really seems to work super well because it allows you to kind of attack multiple channels at the same time. And what I mean by that is like, so in the case of fire protection, for anyone that's not familiar with this industry, a company that does fire protection and fire suppression, they do a lot of things. Like they may help restaurants, data centers, healthcare facilities. You go down the list. There's like a huge list of different types of businesses that they will do fire suppression for, fire protection. And the challenge with that is like, you could theoretically just rank for Los Angeles fire protection and just cast a wide net. But that's kind of similar to just ranking for Los Angeles SEO expert, right? You're going to get everything in here. You're going to get a paint booth that needs fire suppression. You're going to get a restaurant. It's just constant, like, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, yeah, you want those deals, but when you're running a marketing campaign, you gotta really focus in. So what we're doing with them is we made a huge list of all of their potential ICPs, their ideal client profiles. In the context of B2B, ICP is kind of a better thing to use. There's also ICA, which is ideal customer avatar. They're a little bit different. There's some nuance, but the point is you're picking a specific target, a specific audience or prospective audience that you want to try to market to. Simple as that. Okay. So in the context of what they're doing, we picked restaurants because that's like their number one customer type. So what we're doing is like over the next 6 to 8 weeks, we're purely focused on just restaurants. We're purely focused on how do we get more restaurants to invest in fire protection and fire suppression services for this client. And actually, when you start to think about it that way, it becomes much easier because now instead of let's just do SEO for the Los Angeles Fire Protection Company, we say, no, we're going to do SEO specifically for restaurants that need fire protection in Los Angeles. And when you get that narrow, it actually becomes way easier because now you know what content to create, you know what type of ads to run, everything gets so much easier. And you realize like there's actually not that much to do to literally blanket this market. Because most of the competitors that you're up against, especially on the local level, they just don't do anything. Like they just don't create content. Most of them are out to lunch. So even with just an average campaign can beat almost most of the people you're up against. Now I'll tell you, never has it been easier to build out these types of campaigns with ChatGPT. You can literally just go in there and have ChatGPT basically do everything for you. Like, give me 10 lead magnet ideas. Give me, you could just start going down the list of different things and it will just start pumping them out. And you can basically in about an hour pump out a full-on plan that you can execute on over the next 6 to 8 weeks. Like very, very fast. This was never possible before. You would have had to hire a content strategist. You need to hire copywriters and all these things. And now it's like we have possibly the most powerful technology that's ever been invented potentially going on here, other than maybe electricity and a few other things. Like this thing is like so mind-blowing that you can do this. I mean, I'm at the point where like I almost think that I'd say in like 6 months from now, it might be entirely possible to run a one-person agency, like one employee agency that could make 7 figures a year, just one employee. And like you're just the one employee. And then you have ChatGPT and other tools to support you. Like, I think it could get to that point. I do feel bad that a lot of people are going to lose their jobs. Yeah, that really sucks. But, you know, either leverage this technology or don't, but I think you should leverage it personally. Okay, Ray, go for it.
Okay, I jumped in a little late, so I'm gonna kind of confirm. Are you
Yes.
saying like, because I've got in my head like I want to be a guru at SEO. Are you
Yes.
saying like, yes, you can do that, but add on things like Facebook ads or, Google ads to be able to kind of have more skin in the game to build that LTV?
Yes. The short answer is yes. I think the best thing to do is so this is where it gets a little weird because although I don't want to act like I'm futuristic, but like we are kind of on the cutting edge here. Like the stuff we're talking about here is more cutting edge. Like the average business is they're way far behind. Okay. But as far as where I'm thinking in years from now where we're going to be. Okay. And I want to make sure like everyone here is prepared for these changes that are coming. And I'm telling you, like I've seen with my own clients, they're already being affected by the AI overviews in the SERPs. Like they're ranking number one. Like we did our job, we got them number one, and they're getting beat out by the AI overviews, right? So like you can't see stuff like that and not make adjustments. So you got to make some adjustments here. But the point is yes, we need to diversify, but remember that the demand for SEO is very high. Business owners still search SEO. They still search for SEO company. They still search for SEO services. I think that's going to continue for a long time. And like, if you go and look at like, go into Google Trends if you want and check this out, but like, look at SEO versus any other digital marketing discipline. You could look Facebook ads, Google ads, social media marketing, literally any of them. SEO is so much more demand. It's not even funny. It's like crazy, crazy demand. So the reason I'm saying that is because when you're thinking about like, how do I build the brand long term? I think SEO at the middle, as far as like creating content and building your brand around that. But on the back end, as far as the offers that you're going to show to a potential client, I think it should be more of a offer that hits on a lot of different points. So like if you're selling an offer for $5,000 a month, it used to be like just SEO. So like that's what I used to do, just like $5,000 just SEO. Well, now it's like $5,000 for analytics and reporting. Yeah, $5,000 for local SEO, $5,000, all within the $5,000. A little bit of Google ads, a little bit of Facebook retargeting, a little bit of CRO, like baking it all into the retainer now. So instead of all that budget going just to SEO, now it's kind of being split among a few different things, which actually generates better results. So that's kind of the way that I'm approaching it. I think the most important part is make sure you're offering complementary services. So like, I don't recommend going from like, we do SEO to, we also now do like organic Instagram marketing. Like that's where it gets a little hard because now you've entered a totally different realm of things. And I think this is why picking a niche is really important, because certain niches are better with certain channels while others are not. So for example, if you were, let's say you worked with local fashion like stores, like local clothing stores, basically. You might do really well with Instagram and Pinterest and TikTok, but you'd probably do really bad with LinkedIn. Like, probably wouldn't be the best thing to focus on. So like it is super contextual in that regard. And same with like going back to the fire protection services, like, does it make sense for a fire protection company to be on Pinterest? I don't think so. I don't
Right.
think they're going to see their best, you know, clientele over there. So I think that's why kind of focusing in there is really important. But I think it's more about how you structure your packages these days. And really, when it comes to SEO, there's some secondary supporting services that work really well. Number one is like CRO, UX, and kind of design. I think kind of in that package there is really, really good because if you can build a site for conversions, that's going to bleed into everything else, right? So I think that's really important now is like making sure we've got a site that it can actually convert. And then other supporting would also obviously be Google Ads. Like that's a easy low hanging fruit. So occupy more SERP real estate there. Not every industry has local service ads, but if they do, absolutely that you should double down on that as well. And then aside from that, like I've tested a lot of things like Google Display, at least in my experience, sucks. Like, I've tested Google Display more times than I've lost so much money on Google Display and it just does not do well. And I don't know why. I just, in my experience, I can never get it to work for really any business. It just seems like if your goal is like to be like Coca-Cola and you're just doing brand awareness, okay, I see yeah. But for like a business, like, no, we need to put $1 in and make $2. It just doesn't work. So, and then aside from that, like I mentioned, Google Ads, CRO, and then retargeting, that would probably be more Facebook and Instagram driven. So really the way I'm looking at it is like, what are the most popular channels where all the attention is? That's where we need to be essentially. So yeah, Google, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. You basically just captured like 90% of the internet. So, I mean, you'll do fine with that. So, and of course, I think the best thing too is like, as you grow and you have more resources, then you can start to add some more elements, some more diversity. And a lot of these things, like you're really selling them on the back end too. Like you may have a client that's like, let's say you got everything squared away, you got your SEO going, you've got the Google ads going, you've got a great designed website, you've got retargeting set up, but it's like, hey, by the way, guys, it might be worth like creating some new marketing collateral, right? So maybe let's go and get some new pictures that don't look like they're from 1996. Like maybe let's get a video that's not 11 years old, right? So you can start to stack on these things and be a real marketing company, right? That's what we're trying to do. Like that's the way, at least me, I've broadened my view of this a lot more. But it's only possible to do this if you specialize in an industry. If you try to do this as like, I'm the SEO guy, or like I'm the SEO guy in St. Louis, it's going to be like, okay, SaaS company who's got their own internal team. Then you got a plumber who has no resources, and it just becomes too difficult to wrap your head around. Right. So just my opinion. So yeah. Ben, go for it. And then Sam.
Hi there, Nathan. The question I have regarding you packaging these together, you said, for example, 5 grand and offering these solutions. So would Google ad spend be included in that, or Facebook ad spend within that 5 grand?
Yeah, good question. I was going to cover that. So I'm glad you brought it up. So right now, the way I'm doing it, as I'm transitioning clients towards a more omnipresent type of strategy, is what I'm doing is I'm putting a capped amount of ad spend baked into the retainer. So up to a certain amount, and I will show them the effects of that. And I'll say, this is what we're doing with this set amount. If you would like, we can go higher, but that's outside of the retainer. So you would need to make that investment outside of the retainer, right, to increase the budget. So this is how I've been able to make that transition. Yeah.
And so if you've done it that way, would you then get them to pay that directly to either Google or to Facebook, or to pay that in the retainer, then you pay Google and Facebook?
No, it'd be their account. Yeah, it'd be
That
their
would be on
account.
their account.
Yes, correct.
Okay, that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
cool.
these are all like good clarifying questions. And obviously I'm figuring this out as I go as well. But the way I've been doing it is I make them give me access to their account, and then we go in and do our thing. It just gets awkward. Like, you own their stuff. And then I don't know. I'd rather have the separation. Like, okay, it's your account. We're coming in and doing our thing. And it just feels, once you have a good trust, it's pretty easy. Like, my clients have
that's how I've been doing it as well, is that way. But then I was thinking how with us, if I was to put a package together and say that within this package I'll do SEO, Google Ads, analytics, and everything that you mentioned, if we're paying for the ad spend, how would that work? So but that makes sense what you're saying. That makes sense. It's funny enough, I had a client today who's transitioned from, initially he came on board with Google Ads, then we moved him to Facebook Ads, and now he wants to go down the route to SEO. In between doing Google Ads and Facebook Ads, I rebuilt his website with a very basic level of on-page SEO, and just explained to him that this is going to naturally start bringing you some more leads in. And as soon as he started seeing them come in on his website, he was like, I want this, because the type of customer that he was getting from Google Ads and Facebook Ads required a lot more of a selling process. And because he's not got a dedicated sales team, working those leads was a lot harder for him compared to having those inbound leads with SEO. So then I basically said to him that we'll transition to SEO, we'll save you some money with the ad spend on Facebook. And the way we can tackle that in going ahead with, as we start proceeding and getting more money and more leads in through SEO, we can set up Facebook ads again. But this time I'm going to set him up on Facebook ads with a CRM in place and with a AI leads nurturing tool. So there's a tool that I found, I'll share it. It's really, really good. And you can set it up depending on the niche that you're in. And you can kind of just say, like, be the dedicated sales agent that's going to nurture any incoming leads from your CRM. And you can say, be like cutthroat, or you can be kind of gentle with it. And the outcome and what I've seen on the trial is crazy. It's like you're talking to a human, but then at any stage you can basically pass that lead over to that client to then say, now they're ready to go through and be pushed over the line. So these are the kind of things that I want to incorporate in my processes, but the client needs to be in the right position to obviously pay for those services. And I don't want to charge too little for those services, because it's now becoming, like you said, it's not just you're a marketing agency, but you're a marketing agency that's using AI at the forefront of your business, and that alone is a big selling point.
Yes, for sure. And it's actually, I used to be, those are all good points, by the way. And like, I used to be, when AI first came out, I was hesitant to even tell clients like we're using AI and using a lot of things to amplify, because it's just an awkward conversation to have. They don't understand it. But I've actually just been straight up telling clients now. I'm like, yeah, we use AI. Like, AI is a part of our team. So, and like, I haven't seen any resistance to that. They're like, oh yeah, cool. And the conversation just moves on. Like, I think at this point, everyone just has an idea like, oh yeah, AI is being used, so it's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and like, I truly believe at this point, like, and I'll show you guys, I've been debating whether I'm going to publish this video on YouTube or not. So, but I'll show you guys kind of like the recording of it. But I'm telling you, I built out a digital marketing strategy, like I mentioned, for just a mock fire protection company. It literally took me like an hour to build out not just SEO, like the whole thing, email marketing, lead magnet funnel, like the whole thing, like in an hour. Like, I feel bad for people where that's like, if that's their job to create like lead magnet ideas, if I can do it in like 1 minute like that. I mean, It just shows that the real value in today's world is understanding how to use these tools, because everyone has access to them. Everyone has access to, like, the field has been level, right? Like, across the board, like, the field has been leveled, but it's more about how you use it. And if you don't have the underlying understanding of how all the pieces work together, the technology is not going to do anything for you. So the only reason why it works is if you understand the process, you understand the underlying process, that's what's going to make the difference. So to me, like education in this regard, as far as systems, is more important than ever. Like if you don't understand the underlying systems, you're not going to get the full benefit of these tools. So yeah, it's I like the part of you adding the AI kind of. I haven't gotten too much into kind of like the chat bot type of realm yet, because I'm always
scarily good. It's scarily good.
I know, and I've seen some of it. I'm like, my gosh, it's crazy. But it's also like I always, before I ever offer something to a client, I have to feel very, very confident that we can do it well. Not to say I won't offer something and then figure it out. I have done that many times. Hey, yeah, we'll do that. Okay. How do I do that? Oh yeah, go figure it out. I've done that plenty of times, but that's a lot scarier. Right. So, but anyway, okay. Well, thanks, Ben. Appreciate that. Okay. Sam. Oh yeah. Go for it, Ben. Yeah, no worries.
With AI overviews, is that working the same with Google in the UK? Because what I find is that Google in the US seems to be like well further ahead with the features and everything that they're offering compared to Google over here in the UK.
Yes. Yeah. It's everything gets rolled out in the US first, typically. So sometimes the way that one thing Google will do is it will actually test certain things in other countries. Like it will run beta tests in other countries where basically they don't want to ruin the search results over here. They'll test it in like, I don't know, Brazil or something like the Brazil. And they'll just like, nothing against Brazil. I'm just saying I just picked a random country, but it's just, that's what they'll do. They'll pick a random one, see how it goes. And if it goes well, then they'll deploy it in the US. So like right now, I talked to a client today and I showed him multiple keywords, and I'd say of the 4 that I ran, and I picked them randomly too. So I wanted to make sure like this wasn't like I cherry picked, but I picked 4 random ones. And of the 4 that I picked, 2 of them had AI overviews. So it's about a 50% hit rate on that, on the keywords that I picked for his industry. He's very national driven, very informational type of website. So he's the most susceptible to this change. But it's going to take time for that to roll out. And what I'm seeing right now is the keywords that are affected the most are informational keywords that are long tail, really long tail. Okay. So something like, does Disney have ice water? Something like a very specific question that has a very simple answer.
What about something like, what are plantation shutters? Just to chuck that in there.
I would imagine that would get an AI answer. Yes. Now, another thing to consider too is that it won't show up in incognito windows as well. So if you run the search in incognito, it won't pop up. But like on my end here, it is popping up, as you can tell.
Oh, look at that.
So
if you look here, the Shutter Store, they've got their answer is from 2016. So would that not be something that I could cover and maybe squeeze in there as well? Like be one of those options in that?
This is where things get really complicated, because even what they're citing, there's no rhyme or reason for it. Like like with featured snippets, for example, it usually picks from the top 10 somewhere. It'll pick someone in the top 10 to show in the featured snippet. It's pretty systematic in that way. This, on the other hand, there's no like, as far as I've been able to dissect it, there's not a like consistent way or a consistent system that's picking specific things.
Okay, third one, the first 2 are definitely in top 10 results, but just like you said, that third one, Brennan Enterprise,
right?
That's
they are here. They are ranking well, yeah. So like in some scenarios, I have seen this, but like in the case of my client, they were ranking in all the featured snippets for those, and they weren't ranking here.
Okay.
So I think the way I would think about it is like, if you want any chance to be in there, ranking is probably the right thing, right? Like if you would greatly increase your odds of being it as a citation in the AI overviews if you rank in the traditional organic, right? So I think that's a pretty fair bet. The thing that concerns me, and like I said, I can be a little pessimistic about Google, so just take this with a grain of salt. But the one thing I'll say is like, I suspect that in the future, Google will not cite sources. I just think at some point, Google will just, basically just be like, we didn't know this information. Now we're not going to cite anything. Like, why even send people to a website when we can just slap an ad in here and just answer it?
Yeah, and keep people on Google.
Exactly. Like Google's not our friend. Like they're going to do what's best for Google always. So that's why I had to have this conversation. Like it was an urgent meeting I had with my client. Like I don't do urgent meetings often, but if I was like, we need to have a meeting like now, like this is a serious problem for you. And this is actually might be a good learning moment too with your clients, because I went into that phone call with basically only bad news. I basically told him straight up, you should expect less traffic. You're going to get less traffic. There's pretty much no way that you can stop it from happening. That's the bad news. The good news is that all of your competitors are also going to lose a lot of traffic. No one is going to survive this situation. Everyone's going now. So what I did though is I had an alternative of like, okay, yes, this is going to happen, but we can do X, Y, and Z to kind of weather the storm. The two things that I told him is number one, less focus on informational keywords, more focus on commercial keywords, right? So we're gonna move our focus towards that, with the expectation that we're not going to see huge traffic increases anymore, but we're going to see an increase in revenue, right? So we're changing the focus. And the other thing is amplifying he has a lot of good informational content. We're going to amplify it on Facebook and Instagram. So to bring some referral traffic to that content as opposed to just relying on organic search. So sometimes this is a time to be creative. And this is a perfect example. And I brought this bad news to him and he was like, you know what? I trust you. So just do what you got to do. So like, that's just the way it is. So you want to get to a point with your clients where you can tell them bad news and you don't lose the client. Right. And I know this is really hard, but there's so many agencies that just lie too much. Like they get so afraid to tell their clients the truth, and just tell them the truth. Like, look at the facts. Like, look at this. You can't look at this and tell me this is going to be good news for SEO. It's like for some keywords, there is going to be a very negative impact from this. And I can even tell you, not even like quantifiably just by studying this and everything else, but I even mentioned anecdotally, just the way even like I've had a few things where I've searched and it gave me an answer and I was like, that's good enough. And I moved on with my life. Like that's scary. That's scary because unfortunately, humans, including myself, we will value convenience over accuracy a lot of the time. And this is like, I use ChatGPT every single day. You would not believe how many times it's wrong. It does math wrong sometimes. Like I'll put in data and it will do the math. And I'm like, and I'm not even that great at math. And I look at the math and I'm like, that doesn't look right. Like, something doesn't look right about this math. And I'm like, can you run that again? And it's like, oh, sorry. I messed up. It will apologize. Right. Like this is the world we're in. So, but people will always value convenience, and this is extremely convenient. It is extremely convenient. You get an answer. Hey, if I believe it about 80%, it's easier than having to click through on this article from 2016. So, it's we're in a new world. So this is why we got to adjust. And by the way, I may seem like I'm being very pessimistic about SEO. I still think SEO is one of the best channels by far. You have to do it. It's literally a part of it's the foundation of digital marketing, in my opinion. but we got to make sure we're not just being like, I'm just doing SEO. That's very dangerous. You got to do other things. So I think as you guys watch how this progresses over time inside the academy, I'm just going to be adding these layers here. We're going to be adding a CRO piece of this. We're going to be adding an advertising piece of this. We're going to be adding, UX and all that good stuff. Like it's going to get baked in here, and it'll show you how to actually, structure these packages as well, which I'm going through a testing period right now to see what's the best kind of structuring of this. But with, the way I'm doing with my clients is like, the way I'm making the transition is that I'm not making them pay any more money. I'm just saying, you're still paying $5,000. Nothing's changing for you. It's exactly the same. We're just changing our strategy within this $5,000. And that's it. Of course, in 6 months from now, when I see how it's going well, I'll say, hey, by the way, maybe we should increase the budget by 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. We can start having that conversation, but it's only after I've proven that the new model works, then I can do that. So anyway, yeah. Okay. Sam, go for it.
Hi, Nathan. This is going back to earlier in the conversation we were talking about choosing a niche, and my question kind of has a couple parts to it. So I've been really struggling to find a niche that interests me that I could settle in on. And I spent a lot of time reviewing that Google Doc that you shared with everyone. And I guess the one that I'm kind of resonating with the most at this point is the wedding industry. And so, one, thoughts on that. Two, any advice for actually picking a niche? And then 3, do I revise my whole agency site or just stick with like a micro site like SD Wedding Pro Services? And yeah.
Good question. So yeah, I think that's pretty specific wedding, but I would also be thinking about like what within the wedding industry.
Oh, really? So not like, so it's better to go even further and say wedding photographers, not even like, oh, really?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Because even like, I've been married, so I know there's just like watching my wife plan the wedding was like, oh, I'm glad I'm not involved in this. Like, this is way too much. But like between the florists and the photographers and the videographer and the venue and it just, there's a lot. There's so many different things. And so I think if you're thinking about it long term, you could say the wedding industry is my long term kind of like broader target. But then you need to kind of silo out like, okay, first I'm going to focus on videographers. Then once I've tapped that market out, then I'm going to focus on photographers, and then I'm going to focus on venues. And you can break it down like that with the overall intent to kind of capture that wedding market as a whole. But yeah, I think that it just mainly just for like my own sanity and as far as overall effectiveness, just think about like, if I told you right now, okay, brainstorm lead magnets for the wedding industry. What would those be? Right.
Posing?
That'd be.
I actually did do this in ChatGPT as well, but like, yeah, posing guides, a way to feel more confident in front of the camera, how to prepare, this and that.
Yeah, and see, it's a little vague. It's kind of all over the place. But if you said, give me lead magnet ideas for wedding photographers that I'm trying to attract as a digital marketing agency that specializes in wedding photographers.
Okay.
The results you'll get will be way better. They'll be very, very specific to that particular like silo within the broader industry. And I'm not saying you should go out to photographers. I mean, wedding photographers actually are pretty high ticket compared to other photographers like in that group.
So what I have been looking at mostly, but I'm worried also about competing with Instagram, because I feel like people really love getting wedding content from Instagram. But the only thing I thought might help is that like when you actually want a photographer, you want someone local to your area that you don't have to fly them across the United States.
I think I'm speculating here, but I think most people would prefer local vendors over, I just think that's probably the case. But once again, like if you're going to do, like if you're trying to help local wedding photographers, like this is once again, like just doing SEO is probably not going to be enough. Like,
right.
You're going to have to you're going to have to work on their Instagram profile. You're going to have to work on their Pinterest profile, maybe even have to work on some other things as well. So, but this is why picking that vertical is really important. Okay. So on that point, does that make sense, Sam, as far as like kind of going down next level? Okay. And actually to go down another level, not to get too crazy.
No, please.
But then even go down to the location that you want to go after.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So first you're going to say, okay, we're going to do with the wedding industry. Now I've got my different silos within the wedding industry. We've got photographers, videographers, whatever else. Then I'm going to go after the best cities for wedding photographers. Probably focus on the one where you're located first, right? That's probably the best place because you can naturally close deals easier.
Okay.
But then make a list of about five cities that you want to hit as well. So
that's interesting. I would think like I'd want to avoid New York City and Los Angeles. I'm just picking out two big cities for now, just because like, I mean, I can get SEO results and I'm like, I don't know, I'm okay at this point, but like competing with like big agencies in big metropolitan areas, I feel like I would struggle to bring in clients versus like maybe like a little bit more suburban areas would be a better target for me at this point.
Yeah. Well, where are you? Sorry, I didn't even ask where you're currently located. Where are you
Oh, that's
located?
okay. I'm right outside of Washington, D.C.
Okay, you're outside of Washington, D.C. Okay. So yeah, I actually would not go after one of the big metros.
Okay.
I would probably avoid New York City, Los Angeles, and Chicago. I'd probably avoid those for the most part. Probably even avoid like Dallas as well. Like those I would probably avoid in the beginning, and I would focus more on ones where I think I could win a lot easier. So like I'm in a fortunate position because I'm in the Midwest and it's not a whole lot of competition in the Midwest, right? Yeah. So like if I was going after your industry, I'd be like, all right, I'm gonna hit St. Louis and all the surrounding cities, so St. Louis County, and then I'm gonna hit Kansas City, and then Chicago would be like my third option because it's the most competitive. So I'd kind of go in that order.
Okay, thank you.
But what you'll find is there's a lot of opportunity just where you live. Okay.
Okay.
So that's part one. And then as far as like rebranding, you don't need to rebrand. I think some people like they go to one extreme or the other. What I like as far as business structure, the way that you can do it. Okay. So actually this is something I've been learning a lot with my business. As far as like how to structure my business the right way with other businesses that are not related to each other. Like I haven't even mentioned this, but I've been working on like a children's book that my daughter like inspired. We've been working on this for like a year. It's pretty intense. And I've been trying to figure out like, how am I going to, for tax reasons, like, how am I going to handle this? Right. Like it's kind of a weird thing. It's not associated with my main Gotch SEO LLC. And come to find out, all I have to do is just build out a DBA within my LLC. And then I can basically have a separate silo. So all the finances still run through my LLC, but now I've got these DBA set up. So now I have like Gotch Media, right? And her book will be under that Gotch Media umbrella. So going back to what we're talking about here is you have your main company. And obviously by the way, not legal or tax advice, just so you guys know, okay? This is just what I'm doing. But when it comes to your business in the US, we have the LLC in the US. And you can create these DBAs that you're doing business as. Like where I live in Missouri, I can get a DBA for like Gotch Media or Gotch Digital or whatever I want, really. And it costs me like, I don't know, $25 to get one of these. And it just makes it legally compliant. But the reason you do that is just because if you are operating under any other brand, you should likely have the DBA just to be on the safe side. So the way that I'm thinking about it is like, okay, here's my main company name. Then I have Gotch Digital, which is like my broader agency. Let's call it my parent agency. Okay. Then below that, I have my kind of niche focused agencies. They're really just a subset of Gotch Digital, right? So that's the way that I'm thinking about it. And that seems to make a lot of sense. So I don't think you need to burn your business down to the ground and start over. You can build out a really hyper-focused website. And by the way, I'm building one of these out. I just haven't showed you guys yet, but I am building one of these out. I will show you as once I get everything kind of set up here, I'll show you what I've done and everything else. But the point is very, very simple website that is hyper-focused on the ideal client that you want to go after. If your plans to do the wedding industry as a whole, just kind of focus in on that one vertical for the website initially, and then you can just kind of add on as you go. I think that's probably the best strategy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah. Okay, just one more quick question, I guess. So in terms of domain, would you recommend, I guess I bought the domain SEO for weddingpros.co because it had SEO and wedding, and I didn't want to be too specific to include photographers. And I didn't even think about doing digital marketing because I'm primarily focusing on SEO right now. But do you think, is that a fine domain, like SEO for wedding pros? Is there any other keywords you think at this point, like I should definitely get in there?
I think that's fine. But I think as far as your targeting on the website, and this is, I'm glad you brought this up. I know I haven't gotten to the question of the group yet, but this is all really important stuff. Cause this is stuff I've been thinking about a lot. When you're picking an industry, like one of the things that there's a possibility that you pick an industry that's not good. That is right. You could certainly pick one that's just not good. And by the way, I ventured into a few different ones, and once I got deep into like one of them, like for example, I was on a kick there for a while. I was like, all right, I'm going to go after big landscaping companies, not just like individual landscape, but like big landscaping companies. And I started digging into it, and I'm like, this just isn't it. This just isn't the industry, right? And I just finally got it. I was like, all right, I'm scrapping this one. I'm going to a different one. The reason I'm bringing that up is because you could certainly enter one that is just not good for many reasons. Maybe it has low demand for SEO. Maybe it has low demand for digital marketing services. Maybe the industry is not super educated on digital marketing and they just don't care about it. And they're still set in their old ways. And there's just a lot of things. Like, for example, like CPAs, right? Or like a investment advisor or an investment manager. These like financial types of businesses, they are like living 20 years ago. Like you like if you go into that industry, it will like although it's a big industry and it's well established, the problem is they haven't adopted the idea of doing digital marketing. They still live in let's do word of mouth. Let's go shake hands at Starbucks and have a conversation. And they're just not like inbound marketing is not in their realm. They don't value it. They don't think it's a good idea. A lot of them. So on the surface, it's a great industry, but when you dig into it, you realize, whoa, this is going to be really hard to sell this stuff to. So you don't really know until you get into it. So the reason I'm saying that is because you can actually test this. You can test the market before you jump in, until you jump all in. And then, because if you jump in too early, you're going to waste your time creating content and doing all this stuff. And just to realize that it wasn't a good industry to go into. And so the way to test it is just to create really long tail keywords. So it'd be like SEO for plumbers, digital marketing for plumbers, plumber SEO agency, like all of those different variations. Run a Google Ads campaign with a small budget, $100, and just see, are there any impressions? Seriously, just look at is there data? Like, are people actually searching this stuff? And if the answer is no, then, there's only a couple conclusions to this. Number one is you can't really use SEO to build the agency. It means you're going to have to go old school. You're going to have to do traditional business, business development, meaning picking up the phone and calling people or cold emailing, doing it that way. That's not super fun, right? That's not exactly, what you
do SEO anyways. Yeah.
Yeah. And but you can test it before you go all in, because if you go all in, the true way to do this, if you go all in, is you're going to do a full on attack of this industry, which means you're going to not just focus on paid, but you're also going to create content on all the platforms to attract your ideal client, right? So SEO for wedding photographers, digital marketing for wedding photographers. Here's how we grew this wedding photographers leads by 250%. You can start to create that content, but content's hard to make. So you don't want to invest all your time creating this content when there's no demand for it, right? So the quickest way to find demand is use paid. You can use Google ads. You can use Facebook ads as well. You could create like a free tutorial. Here's how to do SEO for photographers. It could be like a little simple post. Run that ad and see if it gets engagement, right? And if it gets engagement, there's something there, right? So you can test it. Not saying you have to do this, but I'm just saying if you want to be on the safer side.
I would like to be on a little bit on the safer side. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's something you could do. And it's not like this isn't gambling, right? You're investing a little bit of money just to make sure you don't waste your time, because we cannot get time back. And there's so many industries, so many niches that you can get into. And just look at the agencies that have done this well. Like they're not trying to hide it from you, the ones that are very successful, right? Personal injury, plumbers, HVAC, dentists, like these are proven industries. Like, don't be afraid of competition. Competition is actually a good thing. Like if you see it's competitive, that means it's already a proven market. If it's not competitive, what does that say? That can be a little scary sometimes. Right. So just keep these things in mind. I know I'm throwing like brain dump on this, but it's important to think about. So yeah.
Thank you so much. It's very helpful. I appreciate your time.
Yes. Okay. Austin. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say, man, just maybe a couple of questions in the group as well, because we haven't got to any of those yet. So just cover a couple, because I know we're getting late here. So
I will. Yeah. Yep. I just want to make sure we cover if there's any clarifications on this. So Austin, go for it.
Yeah, I have like a totally separate question. So if I need to like just ask it in the group, I can do that.
No, well, let's just hear. I'll hit everything. We won't stop until I get everything. So Austin, go for it.
Sounds good. Yeah, so I just went on all in on my agency about 3 months ago and just finally signed my first big ticket client, about $5,000 a month.
Nice.
It's a personal injury lawyer that I know personally, and so it's a brand new website. And I just was wanting to get your thoughts on how you would approach that campaign. Again, for a brand new lawyer, brand new website, no DR or anything, no backlinks. And how would you kind of utilize that budget for that?
Yeah, this is good timing for this question.
Yeah.
Is he running Google Ads?
Not yet. No.
Yeah. I mean, I would honestly, at this point, I would talk to him, or at least before you talk to him, just do a little investigation of maybe doing some Google ad campaigns around some specific silos within his personal injury practice. So, for example, like personal injury is obviously a broad field that includes a lot of things. Slip and fall, medical malpractice, car accidents, motorcycle accidents. You go down the list, right? There's tons of things. So I would actually talk to him if you haven't already and just ask like what in priority order, which of these are most important to you as far as the best leads and the best clients that you get as far as, and trust me, every business knows their best, their best ones, right?
Yeah. And I've done personal injury law before. So I have a pretty good sense of like what the best, like most profitable, like, you know, as far as like how long it takes for certain cases to close versus how much compensation they can get.
Right.
I have a pretty good sense of their priorities. But as far as like utilizing like backlink spend versus content creation, I guess like what would that balance be in your mind?
In the beginning, I would just really focus in. And the reason I was saying Google Ads just because that can buy you a little bit of time since it's new, especially in the case of a new website. Like if you can just get, and I would go after really long tail keywords, like in maybe not the main metro, but surrounding cities. That way you can start getting some like solid traffic and maybe some leads. And while that's happening, my focus would be on building those commercial pages. I want to build out all the commercial pages, make sure they're squared away. And when I mean commercial is like, obviously St. Louis medical malpractice lawyer, all of the good ones. Build all those out pretty comprehensively. Then after that's done, the next piece of this is to build out some link bait. So I'd probably build out 2 to 3 assets about. And then once that's done, then I begin the link acquisition. And then this is all assuming you've done all the local stuff, right? I'm just assuming you've done all the local pack and all that good stuff. And you've got a review generation machine starting to roll as well for the client. Right. You'll have to build out that infrastructure if he doesn't have it. But that's kind of how I would do it. And at the same time, running some paid along that. Like, it's really important for a new one. Even if you know them well, it's going to take a while. So, and this industry is very competitive. So, links are going to be really important.
Yeah. And the personal injury practice that I worked with before, like, they had set up Google business profiles in like every city that they practice in, even if they don't necessarily have an office there. And they were, doing some like, a little gray hat techniques for setting up Google business profiles. So do you have any like good strategies for doing that? If they were like, we're okay with investing in like a certain amount for like office spend for like a virtual office or whatever works to set up Google business profiles in those cities.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you the best strategy, and then you can kind of adapt it based on your situation. But the best strategy is to find shared office space. That works really, really well. So there's a lot of like, you can get a shared office, like in St. Louis, there's tons of shared office space. You can go and get an office there. And you can actually get mail there as well. And you can verify the listing. So there's a lot of things that you can do on that front. And on top of it, if I was going to go that route, I would definitely get a dedicated domain specific to that location. That way it just like is easy ranking. Like, St. Louis personalinjurylawyer.com. I would go that route. And then I would get a DBA for within the law firm to target that location. That's what I would personally do.
Gotcha. So if they serve in like 10 different cities, you would get 10 different domains for each city?
Potentially.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah. Hard to say. It depends on the cities, right? Like, I mean, if it's, if it's, you can go pretty overboard, and I think it's better to kind of focus in on a few before you go, scale it out. But, but definitely I would do like a pilot project in one city just to kind of prove the model. And then once the client sees it works, they'll be like, okay, let's roll this out. So, but yeah, that's what I would do. I'm just purely for the most effective technique.